You know I get excited about all of our guests, but Debbie Cole, or Deborah Cole, as she's known to other grown-ups, has this really unbelievable way about how she sees not only women in business now, but kind of how we've come through as female entrepreneurs, the struggles, the sacrifice, the inspiring tendencies and threads that seem to go through everybody's stories, and of course, the barriers. She's a speaker, a writer, a visual storyteller. She's the author of this incredible book, which I have been loving, called She Believed She Could, and So She Did. And being born in Texas, which is where most of the women's stories are from in this book, she really grew up in that space where she knew all too well what it meant to be a lady and all the expectations that came with that designation. But she was given very little direction in what it meant to find your calling and to become successful and fulfilled. She's a driven, dominant lady like somebody else I know. And so her curiosity and tenacity led her to multiple degrees, a BS from the University of Texas and a master's of science in finance, which that scares the hell out of me. I don't know how science and finance go together, but she went and she got that degree at the Seminary of the Southwest in spiritual direction. After 35 years of leading teams and managing multi-million-dollar projects, the former business owner and leader comes and shares her stories and the stories of others with this incredible documentary style of beautiful storytelling. Whether she's been off growing her business to the top of her industry or serving on community boards, she's there to inspire and educate. She's like a lot of us are. She's a woman on a mission. She does a lot of speaking on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and specifically around being business women. And the reason I am so excited to talk to her today, and we'll make sure that you get her books a little later, but we want to talk about being tired. And we want to talk about what it means when we know we have to do just a little bit more, but we don't know if we've got the space to take on a little bit more. Welcome to the show, Miss Deborah Cole.
Thank you.
And welcome to my co-host, Susie Shattuck.
Hello.
Deborah, I would love to hear from you just a little bit of your story. I know that you've had this incredible career in leadership, but the first book you published was How to Do Less. How to take on less. That seems very counterintuitive for someone who is as driven as we tend to see a lot of our female entrepreneurs. And Lord knows, none of us feel like we're doing less of anything right now.
No.
How did you go through that career and come to less? Let's dive in there.
Oh, well, after leaving a business, I sold my business to my employees after 35 years. And I knew it was in good hands because I had chosen all of the leaders that were taking it forward. And I knew that I was much more, I had much more, there was much more after my identity being consumed with family and business. And all of a sudden, kids are up and grown. My husband developed Alzheimer's and eventually passed away. And my business was, I was no longer the president of a thriving business. But somehow I knew that having less and that having being doing less, that there was actually more in life, more to it. And it wasn't just the minimalism that I believed in, not having a very small space, having a small wardrobe, having small everything, downsizing everything. I knew also that with identity, personal identity, that less was more, because I would find that in releasing attachments to things, either releasing things, physical things, or releasing attachment to things, releasing attachment to outcomes, that I found more. I found more fulfillment, more in life, more happiness, more joy. And so the book I set out to be a book of my photography. I thought, I've got to tell the story behind how I got from building a business to being a writer and a photographer. How does that happen? And it's the less is more. And it may seem like less in traditional sense, but it's actually more internally, more fulfilling, more joy, more peace.
Well, I can easily say that, after everybody got done macrameing and baking their fucking sourdough bread while they were bored during the pandemic, they may have tried a lot of things. And I have to say that I was completely jealous of people that were bored during the pandemic, because I felt like I couldn't catch 2 seconds of breath, let alone pick up a hobby.
Mm-hmm. Mhm.
we've all kind of come to this place where it feels like there's almost a new wave of exhaustion, and there is so much more work to do. There's an abundance of it almost feels like and please, I want to hear your guys' POV on this, but it feels like a cacophony of different things that all need your attention. And then we've got some bigger societal things that are happening that need our voices, and that we're actually getting to make waves out there. And so we should be getting up and standing up and but damn, are we tired? And like, you almost get exhausted from the mental gymnastics of just realizing how exhausted you are before you can do anything about how exhausted you are.
Yeah, and frankly, I think giving ourselves permission to say we're exhausted, because people are used to hear, whether it's on social media or through friends, people are used to saying, yeah, I'm good, I'm fine. I mean, if someone says, how are you? They don't want to hear, oh, I'm tired, I'm exhausted. But frankly, that's the truth of it. And the more we can be open and honest with each other and say, I'm tired, I'm not okay, and I appreciate your support and your help and your friendship and your love to not be okay for a while. Let me rest with you a little bit, because we're all tired.
Well,
I'm trying to say, I'm fine, everything's great, everything's prosperous, everything's happy before the internet. It's like I watched my mom, slap a smile on her face. I've seen everybody do it. I think exponentially shown on the internet, but I think the roots of that happened long ago, trained to be nice girls. And
yeah,
all
and
that.
kind of going back to that being a lady piece, as a lady, you don't air your grievances. You don't tell people how tired you are. You don't even show up with extra lipstick on. How dare you have gone outside?
Oh, yeah.
There's been a lot of us just shedding the shoulds and just having a should fest all over each other, and then stopping because we realize that everybody is in the same shit show that is just blooming
Yeah.
in so many delightful variants. One of the things that we had started talking about is the shoulds around standing up for what's happening in the world right now, standing up for one another, standing up for our businesses. And you had mentioned, right now we're in the middle of this whole situation where Neil Young pulled his music off Spotify, and then Brene Brown pulled her podcast off, and then we're seeing people stand up for not simply being included in the same space as somebody. Right now, the target is Joe Rogan. Trust me, I've got a lot of other people on my spontaneous combustion list that I am happy to volunteer to anyone who's reading, especially if they could make that happen. But how do we use in your perspective right now, how can we pick our battles so that we are not so battle weary by the time we get to the end of the day?
Well, I believe so. I pay attention to things that are going on outside of my personal world, and I think it's important to pay attention to it. But we also don't have to take on everyone else's battle. We don't have to take on the negative energy that is emitted by the news, by social media. I personally made the choice to, although I still participate in social media, I don't read anything that's negative. And that may sound like, I'm hiding my head in the sand, but I just don't choose to let that negative energy come in to my world, because it's just one more thing. So I'm aware of things and I pay attention to them, but I don't, every cause, every movement that comes up, I can't take it on as mine. And kind of cycling back to talking about being the nice person, I think that's the way I was raised, is that you always had a smile on your face. You always made sure everyone else was comfortable before you, asking how everyone else is doing, making sure we don't offend anyone. And I think being honest with ourselves, realizing what our capacity is, that we don't have unlimited capacity, and not even the term picking our battles, but picking what's important for us and the people in our world, whether it's family, friends, colleagues, those, and caring for those in the way that we can. But we don't have to be open and available and care for everyone else before ourselves. I still listen to all of my very intelligent, smart women friends talk about what they give up of themselves for other people. Always. I've done it too. I've given up things for spouse, for kids, for business,
Sometimes we give it up just for perception's sake.
Yes.
The ability to connect and communicate. And
yeah. And that we're being nice for fear that somebody's not going to consider we're nice or we're ladylike. And it's not that I don't care what people think, but I just know the old thing of I've got to care for me and mine close to me first and foremost, number one.
Yeah.
And I do have limits. And
Well,
I do now tell when my kids that don't want to hear that things aren't okay, but I tell them.
Yeah.
When
So
things,
I want to dive into that. And this is going to be a little taboo, but I'm going to toss it out there because that's what we do here.
oh, that's the best.
So I have a 9-year-old daughter, and I love her. She's great. I loved baby, right? Some people don't like the newborns. Some people don't like the terrible twos. I loved every little phase. And then she hit like 7 and the relationship changed.
Yeah.
And now she's gone through 2 years of pandemic, and hasn't gone back to school since winter break. And they just informed me that they were moving her tonsillectomy out another month, maybe more. And so she's going to be home for and there's times when I look at that little soul and I know that I am weary from my travels during the day. She's tired and exhausted and she can't process. And it's almost like I'm trying to find a place to anchor back into the joy of her presence. And as a mom, you got the shoulds and the supposed to's, right? You're supposed to enjoy spending time with your kids, getting down and playing with them. Listen, I'm not playing Barbies. That's not crap I do. You want to start a business? Okay, Mommy's in.
There you go.
But there gets to be a point where it's like, I heard somebody say it the other day on a networking event that she was taking her 2 kids to Disney and how excited she was. And they're like 9 and 11. And I was like, oh my God, it's the 3rd ring of hell. Are you going to be okay? And she was like, no, I'm actually really excited. And like it blew past me. I was like, oh, I have disconnected from something here.
It's okay. I mean, I think I've been through those things of, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to take my kid to Disneyland and I really don't want to go. It's, I'll go once. I'll do I'll do it so that I can say I've done it. But it's not admitting who we are really. And I think we've got to just be who we are and live with who we are. And because when we I don't know about everybody else, but when I try to force myself into that tight shoe of not who I am, I'm grouchy. And then I'm worse than if I'd said something. So, and I've got grandkids and I'm not that grandma. I'm not that grandma.
So what kind of grandma are you?
I'm the kind of grandma that I don't give any of them gifts, but I will give them experiences because I'm not into plastic things and toys and dolls and all that. But if you want to have an experience together, let's figure out something we can do together, and that will be fun. But I'm not the babysitting grandma, like you said, get down on the floor and play with them. I'm better with older kids.
So basically, we should all just send our children to Susie's house between the ages of 8 and 12.
That's a good age.
And it's so funny because, Susie, you can tell a little bit about your story and how you became an accidental parent for a few years. But wow. I saw you and Ethan connecting with them in such wonderfully unique ways.
Well, I think part of it is that I wasn't their mom. I was the aunt. And so there's a lot more that you can, I think, I don't know. There's certain things that you're supposed to do as a mom that I wasn't really tied to because I wasn't their mom. And I was being very clear about that. But I still am, but they're just not here anymore, a strong and nurturing force in their life who was, helping them with emotional stuff, helping them grow their capacity to handle it, helping them speak languages, like get emotional intelligence and all that stuff and heal from some of the trauma that got them in the situation of us being partial caregivers to begin with. It's an age that I absolutely love. Like when taking my one nephew who loves to wear eyeliner to Sephora and the other nephew lost his mind. He's like, I can't go in there. And I'm like, sweetie, it's colors. You'll be fine. He's like, I'm going to go out in the car. I'm going to sit there. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, are you going to sit there all lonely and masculine? Or are you going to come hang out with us?
Lonely and messy.
If you do crack a window, because if you get me in trouble for your butt dying in a hot car, I'm going to be pissed.
Right. It was August. Come on. It's California. It's August. You're coming in with me, but yeah, I always felt pretty liberated from those shoulds because I'm not ladylike. The last person who told me to be ladylike, it was a long time ago. And I said, did you know that lady is a title of nobility? And with the title of lady, I expect land and an annual stipend from the queen.
And a tiara.
And they're like, and I'm like,
Bring your
I'm
own.
sorry, we are not in colonial times anymore. And also, titles of nobility are against the Constitution because we're a republic democracy. And so I got so like political science crazy on them that I've never heard it again. I'm like, give me land and money, and then I will, cross my legs.
Well, Susie, maybe you've landed on the secret is rather than all these shoulds of I should do this because I'm a mom, think in terms of I'm a beloved aunt.
Yeah.
But it's the shoulds. It's really not the reality of it. It's I think, the attachment to the expectations of what moms should be. And I was always around moms that made the perfect lunches and had the strawberries in little containers with powdered sugar on top. And my kids got peanut butter and jelly sandwiches their entire school year, and it's just that attachment to how we should be that we somehow need to talk ourselves out of that. And the same with being a grandma. I'm not that grandma, but I have a great relationship with my grandkids. I mean, they'll call me up on a Friday and I'll say, sorry, Grammy can't talk right now. I'm at a wine bar with friends, so I'm just a different grandma.
It's good for them to know that you have a life and interests and
yes.
relationships and a whole rich life. It's important.
Plus, they have my unconditional love. Number one, always, first and foremost, always. But I also have a very rich life.
That does center around you. I know it's hard to understand. So, I think this really does tie into the bigger picture because not only are we at this point showing up with our lists of shoulds that some of us, I mean, let's face it, I should organize my kitchen. So I bought all kinds of these fabulous acrylic little containers. I mean, and there was a shit show the other day. Like I couldn't even get to the stove. I was like, okay, I've organized myself out of being able to use my kitchen. That's
just what I wanted.
Just to learn.
Did you get takeout?
For the last week. But as businesswomen and as entrepreneurs and as people that are finding themselves again, we pull down a whole new list of shoulds, right? I should be successful. I should be able to handle this with grace. I should be the duck on the water, right? Smooth sailing, and underneath it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. But on top, it's just a graceful glide. I want to take a look at life and start stabbing away pieces that are just not serving me. And I know that after I had lost Jim, and then very shortly after that, lost my best friend, Laura, I was at emotional ground zero. Like I was so emotionally dead that I had no shits left to give about anything that wasn't going to make it so that Lily and I could survive through that day, if not that hour. And it was a great place to be. And then I got angry about a feminine recession and homeschooling with CPS and started a revolution. And I took on a whole new crown, which I'm very proud to wear because we're changing lives. But how do we start to laser focus in on that which can be let go, that we've built up an importance level around that people probably don't even care about?
I think it's an individual thing. I think expectations of when something kind of tips over from giving us joy and filling us up, filling our cup, and it becomes a negative. It's a subtracting thing. That's when I look at something and say, it's not serving me. If it doesn't serve me, then how can I, and I hate to use the word serve, but how can I be there? How can I be there for other people? If I have a team, if I have a business, if I have a family or friends, whomever's around, how can I be there fully in myself, in my purpose, if I'm having pieces subtracted from me? And so I think some people say, ooh, I'm just going to do it all at once. And I'm just going to check it all. And I'm going to go move somewhere else. I'm going to change my identity. I'm going to quit my job. But I think it also works if it's just piece by piece, that if it's not a volunteer position. I was on 2 boards. This is minor. I was on 2 boards in 2 different cities. And I thought, I come to these board meetings and I'm frustrated and things aren't done. I can't give of my best self. And oh my gosh, if I quit, what are they going to think? And then I thought, I'm sorry, but this doesn't serve me. I'm not able to serve this board in the way to the best of my ability. So I gave up a board position, and then I gave up another board position. And it was so freeing. It's almost like taking off a pair of tight shoes. Oh my gosh, I can take off this pair of 5-inch heels and put on some slippers. And oh my gosh, I've still got on shoes, but it feels so good.
Oh, but I like the high heel slippers. So, I think to just kind of bring this back to point, every one of us is going to feel like there are expectations in our lives, right? We're either living up to what our parents told us we should be, or what our church told us we should be, or what mantle of society we've picked up for our own individual selves. And don't misconstrue that. I did say you picked it up, because you did. At some point, you became part of that should system, because it was either serving you at the time, or you thought it was going to get you where you wanted to go and get the emotional rewards of it. And now we're in a should shit show, and it's time for a should pyre, where we can just let it. Did I say that right? Pyre? Like a fire? Okay.
Yeah, no, you said it right. I didn't know you were going to go to a flaming stack of stuff. So
a flaming stack.
I've got so many things.
Light it.
I was surprised by the Vikingness of you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm a 5-foot Valkyrie. It's in here. It works. I think there's also a way to do it and to set those shoulds on fire in ways that lift other women up and allow them to liberate themselves in that process.
Yes, because I don't believe other people should. I don't think we get the benefit of the liberation if someone does it for us. If we stay in a situation too long and either the universe or someone else cuts the tie, I think I gain so much more strength when I've made the decision. And people want to know, oh, well, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong. This is not a good situation for me anymore. Before it gets to the point where it does explode. I mean, we can light our own fire. We can set it on fire ourselves, and maybe we just let it kind of smolder away. But I think it's more powerful when we make that decision.
But I think, and we hear it all the time, that you can't be what you can't see. I think that even circling back to what Brene Brown just did with pulling her episodes off of Spotify and that kind of thing, we've got to start showing one another that we have a voice. Because we would be remiss to think that we have been shouting into the darkness this whole time and nobody heard us, even if it was one other woman or one mind that was changed. Your ability to not only tell your story, but exemplify boundaries is what gives other people permission to see themselves doing the same thing and to go, holy shit, she said no. And she didn't catch on fire or nothing. They didn't take her into the basement and shoot her straight to hell. Look at that.
Yeah.
It's
absolutely. And showing up for each other in visible ways is, it's so impactful. So impactful. And that's part of my mission is it's looking for ways, and how can I show up? How can it's not my mission to be an example, but how can I through living my life and speaking my truth, how can I be there for other people and say, it's okay. It's okay to say you're not okay. It's okay to lean on me for a little bit. Let's have a talk. I can't fix anything, but I'm here for you.
Isn't there somebody who can just fix everything for us? Doesn't that exist on Amazon?
I think it's called Mom. Call Mom. She'll fix it. She knows where everything is.
Mom either.
No.
So, Susie, I know that you came through some very significant shifts in your life that you had to be the absolute catalyst for. Did you have examples of what that looked like before you had to toss your ass off a bridge? And by the way, for those that are just joining our podcast, I am speaking specifically about Susie pulling herself out of the cult that she was born into and
I didn't have much of an example because my entire community was about conformity and about appeasing the leaders. And so I did have my friend Jocelyn, who she was my coworker, and we talked about it. She was the one who introduced the concept of, do you understand that this could be considered abuse? And I didn't understand that because the abuse was the water, everything was abuse. And so I was getting beaten because God wanted me to, and I deserved it. And so how is that abuse if it's God's will, right? So I couldn't understand that it was abuse until she just gave it very gently. And then she said, if you can figure out how to get out, I'll find you a place to live. And so for that was kind of an example, but I'd never seen anybody do what I did. I just had to do it or I was going to die. And I didn't want to die. So.
Well, and there's, first of all, like whenever I see Jocelyn, I'm going to give her a hug. She ain't never going to forget. But it's almost, the thing that keeps hitting me is it's almost like creating new neural pathways, right? We know that when we're going a different direction or trying something new, we're actually in our brains creating new pathways for that particular action to happen.
You're like forcing the tunnel that the
Right.
neural pathways will then go through, but you gotta be a mole person first and like dig it out and like figure out how to get through. Because if you have no example, it's just instinct. It's just running from.
Right.
I would have had an easier time if I would have had a 2 that I was running for, but from was good enough at the time.
Right. And I think that's just such a beautiful example of where we are, right? Because for a long time we thought we were running back to normal.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what? Normal wasn't working in the first place. And now it's not even an option. So if we're going to reclaim parts of ourselves, if we're going to stop taking on more for the sake of taking on more and trying to fit ourselves into these boxes that just really can't exist anymore. I can't see any way that we could, unless we were true mole people and just had our heads in the dirt all the time, not seeing out. There's no way that we can go back to the traditional roles that everybody was playing beforehand and put on the smile and, do the ladylike thing and pretend like everything's okay. But where are we running to? And is it to a better version of life? Is it to a deeper connection with self? Is it going to have value once we get there? And unfortunately, you don't get to know.
No, and I don't really think that our normal or perfect life or whatever you want to call it, I don't think it's outside of ourselves. I think it starts with us. And that's a scary, for me, that was a scary thought, that my happiness and my peace starts with me. I don't rely on, it's wonderful to have a relationship with someone. It's great to have the love of children. It's great to have friends. It's great to have a business that I'm proud of. But my happiness doesn't come from them. It starts with me, and then I can reflect it back out. And that's where letting go of a lot of expectations for how things should be. The shoulds were all outside. They were all external. Whereas the true joy and happiness and the answers all come from within us. And that's pretty darn scary. That's relying on ourselves. It's, oh my gosh, now can't I just give up some of this to somebody else or something else? But it's
isn't there a consultant for that? Come on.
There's bound to be. You can ask, I mean, can't you Google it and find the answer?
Susie, I promise I'm not starting any more businesses.
Not yet.
And it's funny, but like I keep getting this great visual of getting 2 colors of Post-it notes and just going through like a week of my life and being like, well, that shit didn't make me happy. And that didn't make me happy. And that just kind of drained my soul. And I have a feeling that the wall over here, which is attached to my daughter's bedroom right now, and she has no idea why I'm banging on the wall.
I do. Mommy's podcasting. Shush.
Right? What happens? But like really taking that time to connect back to that which is truly valuable, truly authentic to where you're going, and quieting down that cacophony that we were talking about. If we've got all the answers inside of ourselves, then it's us that's also keeping ourselves from those answers.
Oh, absolutely. Well, because for however many years we've been alive, I have listened to what everybody else told me. 17,000 messages that come from society through advertising and media every day tell me what I should look like, how I should act, how I should be. And oh my gosh, I'm having to please 17,000 messages a day, plus all the people. And at the end of the day, maybe if I can just say, I'm enough. And if I don't wear the right shoes, the right shoes that are being advertised right now, or if I don't buy the right clothes, or I don't have the right whatever for the moment is the right thing, I've got to be okay with that and not feel guilty and not listen to the shoulds. I should do this. I should do that. I mean,
are you being hyperbolic, or have people been that judgmental of your actual literal shoes and your outfits?
No, I'm just using shoes because I've been getting rid of some lately.
I'm just checking. I'm like,
no, I'm trying to figure out how to get by with 2 pairs of shoes, and I haven't quite done that yet. But
you just said terrified me, and I'm not going to accept that into my existence at this time, Deborah. Who can live with 2 pairs of shoes?
Well, it could be shoes or purses or things, it could be whatever. Books, getting rid of books. Why do I need these books? Because I've gotten rid of so many books because those books are security for me, that there's knowledge in those books. And how could I get rid of books? So this whole idea of letting go of things, it's not just things. It's not just shoes. It's not just books. It's not just kitchen appliances. It's attachment to outcomes, attachment to the way things should be. And I'm guilty that every day I know how things should be. And every day I'm disappointed. So it's working on that constantly.
Oh, I love that. Y'all, if any of you guys want to hop into our Forward Revolution Facebook group and join us on a little could extrication and a little bring you joy invitation, trust me, by the end of this podcast, I will have something worked out for us to have fun and play with. Because I think the other part is when we get so lost and we get so tired, there is no space for us to go. And we've all got to be holding each other up without holding each other to expectations.
Yes. Oh, so well said. It's holding each other up without holding to expectation. And that is true. I mean, and even when we don't think we're expecting things of people, we're expecting things of people.
Absolutely.
So can I ask you a question about your book? Because I haven't seen it. What should I expect from your book? What are you trying to communicate to me in your book? What are you hoping that readers get from it?
Well, let me talk about the one that just came out, which is She. The intent is for those women that have ever thought, which I was one of them, owning a business, I could never do that. I have no interest in that. It's scary and it's challenging, but it's one of the most rewarding things ever. And so I've interviewed and photographed 35 women who, except for 2 of them, never had any idea of owning a business ever, because that's not how girls used to be raised. Now, things are changing. And in high schools and colleges now, entrepreneurship is taught and it's talked about, and it's not just gender specific for men. But the idea is, here are 35 women that didn't have a notion of starting a business, and now they're successful business women. And they look like, one of the reasons I wanted to photograph them is because I want you to see that these are just people like us. They're just like us. And they all have successful businesses, and they're diverse. The women are diverse. Their backgrounds are diverse. The businesses are all over the place. And whoever thought there could be a business in X or Y or Z? These women would have a passion, and I think I can make a business of that.
Well, that's amazing.
As a serial entrepreneur, I can tell you that no matter how many classes you take or how many letters come after your name, you are going to get an MBA on the streets, whether you want it or not, because entrepreneurialism is not for the faint of heart. You've got to be willing to keep standing up when you know that you are on purpose. And
every damn day.
Every damn day. And it's that look at the end of the day, it's because of you and the team you build. It's talk about direct positive feedback or negative feedback, direct feedback. You get it every day. And all of the worries and all of the highs and the lows, they're all worth it. Every one of them.
As long as you know what your ROI is. And that's the ROI that you wanted.
Yes, absolutely.
So, Deborah, I want to thank you so much for coming on with us today.
Sure.
I did not mean to put you in like a font of wisdom kind of space.
I'm
But
not.
you did it so well. So for those of you that want to connect more with Deborah, you can follow her on Facebook at Deborah Cole Connections and on Instagram at Deborah_Cole_author. And Deborah Cole Connections is her website. She brings an absolute beauty to the individual stories of not only resilience, but innovation and diversity. And she's a lot of fun to talk to.
And you are too, both of you.
Thank you so much for spending your time with us today. We're happy to have you as a revolutionary and as the exact kind of grandma that you want to be.
Yes.
Get 'em, Grammy. It's all right. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time in Clutching Our Pearls.
Clutching Our Pearls is a no-holds-barred conversation about women, work, and the world. We strive to approach economic, social, professional, and cultural topics from an open-hearted, good-faith, intersectional feminism point of view. What started as a single mom and business owner's reaction to the coronavirus pandemic continues as a mission to change how work works so that the people have choices. Learn more at fwdREvolution.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a phenomenal review on the platform you use. Talk to you next time.